In the public imagination, the Tyrannosaurus Rex has always been the king. From blockbuster movies to museum halls, it is the ultimate celebrity of the prehistoric world, the symbol of absolute dominance. We grew up believing that nothing could possibly be bigger, badder, or heavier than the tyrant lizard king. But modern science has confirmed a unbending truth. The T-Rex was living a lie. The largest predator to ever walk, or rather, swim in the face of this earth was not the T-Rex. It was the Spinosaurus, aegyptiacus. Recent reconstructions have shattered the old records. The Spinosaurus reached a staggering length of 16.7 meters and weighed up to 8 tons. That is nearly the length of an articulated city bus, making it significantly longer than the largest T-Rex ever found. But this raises a massive contradiction. How? How did a dinosaur manage to outgrow the T-Rex, a creature that had already hit the absolute physical limit of what a two-legged animal can support on land? The answer lies in a brilliant ecological hack. The Spinosaurus didn't fight gravity on the ground. It moved the battlefield to the water, however. The story of the Spinosaurus isn't just about numbers. It is a tragedy. Why did we think T-Rex was the king for so long? Because the evidence for the Spinosaurus didn't just disappear over millions of years. It was erased by modern warfare. To understand the true scale of this monster, we have to go back to a night in 1944. This is the story of how a World War II bombing raid stole the crown from the true king, and how scattered fragments are finally forcing us to rewrite the history of the monsters that time the war tried to forget. The story of the Spinosaurus doesn't begin in a laboratory today. It begins in the deserts of Egypt in 1915. It was there that the elite German paleontologist Ernst Stromer discovered the partial skeleton of a nightmare. Even back then, studying these initial bones, Stromer realized he had found a theropod two-legged carnivore that rivaled and perhaps exceeded the mighty Tyrannosaurus Rex. But the Spinosaurus was destined to become a casualty of human conflict. The fossils were transported to the Paleontological Museum in Munich, Germany. Stromer pleaded with the museum director to move the priceless collection to a safe location as the clouds of World War II gathered. But his requests were ignored because of his anti-Nazi political stance. Then, on a night in April 1944, the inevitable happened. An Allied bombing raid targeted Munich. The museum was hit. The holotype, the original, definitive proof of the Spinosaurus's existence, was incinerated. In a single night, the only physical evidence of the Earth's largest predator was reduced to ash and rubble. This tragedy had a massive ripple effect on history. Because the physical proof was gone, the scientific community had no choice but to rely on drawings and descriptions. Without the bones to measure, the Tyrannosaurus Rex ascended the throne by default. For decades, T-Rex was the king simply because its rival had been erased from reality. It wasn't until much later that the throne was challenged again. About 11 years ago, the Giganotosaurus 14 meters, 8 tons, briefly stepped in to depose the T-Rex. But recently, new discoveries in the Sahara have unearthed a new skull and fresh fragments of the Spinosaurus. These new finds allowed scientists to digitally reconstruct the animal, finally restoring it to its rightful place at the top. This saga teaches us a humbling lesson about paleontology. The title of the largest is fragile. It is a title constantly being rewritten by luck, by war, and by the discovery of a single bone. We are building a puzzle where half the pieces are missing and the other half might be destroyed tomorrow. To truly understand this coup d'etat, we have to look at the tail of the tape. Let's put the 3 undisputed heavyweights of the Cretaceous period side by side in the ring. In the first corner, we have the former champion, the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Length, 12 to 15 meters. Weight, around 6 to 9 tons. In the second corner, the challenger from South America, the Giganotosaurus. Length, 14 meters. Weight, roughly 8 tons. But towering over them both is the Spinosaurus. Length, 16.7 meters. Weight, holding steady at 8 tons, but distributed over a much longer frame. Why is there such a distinct gap? Why did the T-Rex stop growing at 15 meters? The answer is that the T-Rex was a prisoner of the terrestrial limit. The T-Rex was a fully terrestrial animal. It hunted, mated, and slept on solid ground. And on land, gravity is a brutal lawmaker. Biomechanics tells us that for a bipedal two-legged animal, there is a red line at around 15 tons. If a T-Rex theoretically grew to 16 tons, its femur bones would shatter under the stress of walking. It would need legs so thick, they would be useless. The T-Rex hit the absolute ceiling of what a biological machine can do against gravity. So, how did the Spinosaurus break this rule? Simple. It found a loophole. The Spinosaurus didn't evolve stronger bones. It evolved a new address. It moved into the water. By adapting to a semi-aquatic lifestyle, the Spinosaurus utilized buoyancy. In the water, the rules of physics change. Water is much denser than air, providing an upward force that counters gravity. This acts as a ghost skeleton, supporting the massive bulk of the animal. On land, a 16.7-meter dinosaur would be clumsy, top-heavy, and vulnerable. But submerged in the rivers of North Africa, the Spinosaurus was weightless. It was graceful. It could grow longer spines, a heavier tail, and a massive body because the water was doing the heavy lifting. And if you need absolute proof that water is the key to size, you just have to look deeper. The Spinosaurus was just dipping its toes in. The true giants of the Cretaceous were the ones that abandoned the land entirely. Look at the Mosasaurus hoffmanni. This wasn't a dinosaur. It was a marine reptile, cousin of modern monitor lizards. Yet in the ocean, it reached lengths of 17.4 meters, 57 feet, while the largest T-Rex struggled to reach 9 tons. The Mosasaurus easily surpassed 15 to 25 tons. Some estimates suggest they could grow even larger. Why? Because in the ocean, the physics trap of the land is completely nullified. This comparison reveals the ultimate truth of prehistoric engineering. The T-Rex was the best possible version of a land predator. But the Spinosaurus proved that if you want to become a true monster, if you want to break the limits of biology, you have to stop fighting gravity and start using the water. The Spinosaurus didn't just stumble into the water. It was bioengineered for it. If you look at a T-Rex, you see a bone crusher designed for terrestrial warfare. But if you look at a Spinosaurus, you see a highly specialized tool. Its snout was long and narrow, filled not with serrated steak knives, but with conical, interlocking teeth. This is the exact design we see in modern crocodiles. It wasn't built to crush bone. It was built to trap slippery, fast-moving prey. By specializing in this semi-aquatic niche, the Spinosaurus pulled off a brilliant strategic move, niche partitioning. While other giant theropods like carnivorous were fighting over carcasses on the plains, the Spinosaurus had the entire river system to itself. It didn't need to compete. It tapped into a massive, unexploited food source giant prehistoric sawfish and coelacanths. By avoiding the land wars, it secured the calories needed to fuel a body that land predators couldn't afford. This shift to the water represents a significant milestone in the history of life. It marked the ultimate victory of the endoskeleton internal skeleton. In the Paleozoic era, the oceans were ruled by arthropods, giant bugs like the Eurypterids sea scorpions, but they hit a hard limit at 2.5 meters. Why? Because they had an exoskeleton. An external shell becomes too heavy and restricts breathing as it gets bigger. The Spinosaurus combined the structural strength of an internal vertebrate skeleton with the buoyancy of water. This combination is what allowed life to finally shatter the 2.5-meter barrier and push towards 17 meters. But recent technology has revealed that this race for size started much earlier than we thought. Enter Newtonsaurus cambrensis. For a long time, we believed giant carnivorous dinosaurs didn't appear until the Jurassic. But recently, scientists used 3D scanning technology to reconstruct a ghost fossil from the early Triassica, natural mold left in the rock. The digital reconstruction revealed a large, predatory theropod living millions of years before the T-Rex or Spinosaurus. This proves that the drive for gigantism wasn't a late-stage experiment. It was a fundamental feature of dinosaur DNA from the very beginning. The Spinosaurus was simply the climax of an evolutionary algorithm that had been running for eons. And the Spinosaurus wasn't the only one to figure this out. The Mosasaurus took this logic to its extreme. It evolved from small land-dwelling lizards related to modern monitor lizards and completely returned to the sea. In a geological blink of an eye, they transformed their legs into paddles and their tails into flukes. Exploding in size to 17.4 meters, this confirms the pattern. When a reptile decides to stop walking and start swimming, the limits of physics are unlocked and the monsters truly take over. So, what have we learned from the Spinosaurus? It has rewritten the history books. It proved that the Tyrannosaurus rex, for all its fame, was not the ultimate limit of life. The Spinosaurus achieved a length of 16.7 meters, not by trying to beat the T-Rex at its own game on land, but by realizing that the only way to win the size war was to change the battlefield. It proved that specialization, finding a niche where physics works for you, not against you, is the ultimate strategy for dominance. But there is a haunting beauty to this story. We almost lost this truth forever. The original bones of the Spinosaurus were turned to dust in a bombing raid in 1944. For decades, it was a king without a crown, a ghost existing only in old drawings. But science is stubborn. Through new discoveries in the Sahara and advanced digital reconstruction, we have dragged this monster back from extinction a second time. However, there is a final dark twist. Whether you were a T-Rex crushing bones on land, a Spinosaurus swimming in the rivers, or a Mosasaurus ruling the oceans, you all shared the same fate. 66 million years ago, when the asteroid hit, gigantism became a death sentence. The very adaptation that made them kings, their massive bodies became their coffin. In a starving world, being big is a liability. The Spinosaurus, the T-Rex, and the Mosasaurus all vanished. The only winners were the ones who refused to play the size game, the small, the hidden, the humble. But the lesson of the Spinosaurus remains: to become the most terrifying monster in history, you don't need to be the strongest on the ground. You just need to find the place where gravity loses its grip. When a predator decides to swim, the limits of the earth dissolve. The age of the Titans truly begins. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the lost history of the Spinosaurus. If you want to see us explore the monsters that took over the oceans after the dinosaurs died, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
We'll be right back.
Stay curious, stay skeptical, and I'll see you in the next dig.